Spinning.
Welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast with author Sara F. Hathaway and co-host Chen Gibson, blending survival fiction and fact to bring you entertaining education that will help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sara F. Hathaway and Chen Gibson.
Hello, and welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast. I honestly have no idea what episode number we're on. Hey, Jim, what's up?
Shit's up, y'all.
So we've just been racing around like chicken with our head cut off because of good old prepper camp there and back and around the world again. And man, it was a fantastically blessed year this year. Amazing experience on all levels.
Yep, it was a very good year.
Yeah, weather was, in and out. Goodness, we could have asked for like a little bit better, but nothing.
That was nothing.
It wasn't Helene. Yeah.
That was nothing.
Shirts were a big hit. Jesus was ever so present. And
holy smokes.
Man, it was just a great time. You guys got to make it out there. If you haven't been out to prepper camp, you are missing out something fierce because we just have a blast out there every year.
Black Friday, get your tickets.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, no, I got to get my campsite. So we're slowing it down today, kind of. We're breaking form from our traditional show because I really wanted to present my anti-kidnapping, anti-abduction, and sexual assault class to y'all. Getting ready to be the holiday season. Chin was reminding me of that. And it's great content. And I wanted you all to have access to this. And then I wanted everybody to be able to have free access to all the video in the future so that when you need to come back and review what's going on, I had a lot of requests for it from prepper camp to be able to watch my presentation without sitting in the class, being able to go back and review things. So today, we won't have any Changing Earth news today. It has been wild out there. North Carolina is getting hit right now. I looked at the earthquake numbers today. We have 43 erupting and like 42 showing minor activity. We're up to 110 volcanoes on our planet. Just months ago, 29 was a big deal. To have 29 erupting was like, wow, okay, crazy. And it seems like every month we're just upticking numbers now, which is really insane. So we'll see what becomes of it, cooler planet, whatnot. We've also been in geomagnetic storm for a long time with no apparent reason for that activity, which is not a good sign as well, with pink auroras going crazy, which is very unusual. No CME production, yet we're in geostorm situations. So that's also really, really concerning. It's eyes wide open. I always tease that it's a race, the people versus the planet. What catastrophe is going to happen first? And the planet is definitely swinging hard right now. So everybody stay vigilant for your area, stay prepared like you are. Do all the good stuff that you know how to do. Alrighty, so I'm going to be doing a lot of talking today. I welcome any kind of questions on the live chat, but also Chin, feel free to, interrupt me and run any kind of questions by me. I'll just try to stay.
I didn't check the mail today. Was I supposed to go down and get like duct tape or zip ties or anything?
Yeah, no, we're not putting it on TV.
Okay, no bugs, no duct tape, no zip ties. Good.
Yeah,
good to go.
I have them recorded, so we're good as far as that goes. Yeah. The reason why I don't do them live, and I tell everybody this, the reason why I don't do the escapes live every time is because they hurt, like really bad. It rips all the hair off your arms and usually leaves me pretty good and bruised for a while. So especially when I'm at prepper camp, I can't do it 3 days in a row. I mean, I could, but for the sake of my body, I don't do it 3 days in a row. So I have that recorded, and we'll go over those once we get there. So I like to just kind of start it out with a video that I put together, and it's just really a summary of me and my martial arts experience, so you know kind of where I've been. I've been training martial arts for a long time. We'll get more into that, but we're going to go ahead and start out with that video.
Started young, fists clenched tight, learning grace in every strike, courtesy in the bow, integrity in the fight, building strength through day and night. I've always been a fighter, heart on fire, perseverance pulls me higher, indomitable spirit, claim the victory. Knock down our rise, wild and free, confidence surges, courage ignites, defend what's right, never back down from the falling hard on the mat's cold floor, but that spark inside roars for more. From styles that twist to those that break, every lesson, no room for fake. Integrity holds through sweat and pain, victory calls again and again. Fire never fades, it burns so bright, through every challenge into the light. Courtesy guide, spirit unbroken, a warrior's path forever spoken. I've always been a fighter, heart on fire, perseverance pulls me higher, indomitable spirit, claim the victory. Knock down our rise, wild and free, confidence surges, courage ignites, defend what's right, never back down from the heart on fire, perseverance pulls me higher, indomitable spirit, claim the victory. Knock down our rise, wild and free, confidence surges, courage ignites, defend what's right, never back down from the
So there we go, just a little bit about me and my martial arts experience, all the different forms that I've trained and everything. I like to use it as like a tension breaker because this class is pretty difficult, not only to teach, but also the material to go through. And the devil, always tests me every time that I go to teach this class in some way or another. And that's how I know I'm really doing the Lord's work. So, yeah, I just put the video together to be able to, a little tension breaker at the beginning, right? I'll get everybody smiling and having fun. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and jump into it. Again, I'm dealing with technology, so be nice. Sarah's the one-man show. Wow, with 10. Well, I got to get you more tech.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Alrighty, so avoiding abduction and sexual assaults. This is a huge topic in our world today. We have a lot of instances, a lot of really gross things going on these days. So when Rick asked me to teach this class originally, I was like, yeah, let's do it. I already teach a lot of it in my self-defense class. Let's go ahead and break this material out and make it really its own class. So I grew up a country girl. shooting rifles and bows. I was always an athlete. Began training martial arts in 2002 with Kuk Sool Won, but I've trained Taekwondo, both Muay Kwan, Kukiwan style, close quarters combat, Brazilian and Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, sports Jiu-Jitsu, MMA. What am I missing? Oh, and now I'm doing Krav as well. So just kind of run the gamut on everything. And everybody asks me, what style would you prefer somebody to train? Because I always encourage everybody to get out and train. There's schools everywhere. They give free trials. And it's you can see from the video that I played, how much of a family uniter it is for us to all do this together. So I really recommend that you get out to a school, you learn to train, and do that and make it a family affair. So if you ask me what style now, after all these years of training, I would definitely say Krav, Magra. I always screw up the last word, Krav Magra. See, I told you, I always screw up the last word every time. But I would definitely say training Krav 100% hands down has been the best style because it goes up, it goes down. So it's stand-up fighting, it's on the ground fighting, it's weapon systems, so much self-defense involved that it's really brought all my martial arts training together into one place, which I like. I'm very happy. I mean, I wouldn't go back in time and change how I did anything, but I definitely would recommend Krav if you're looking for a type of style to do. So human trafficking is the #1 growing enterprise in our country. A child can be trafficked 30 to 40 times every day for about 7 to 10 years. After the child has been used up, they a lot of times just use them for parts and things like that, which is horrible to even have to say. Like I say, that's why this class is really challenging for me to keep or for me to teach. Because it's a lot of difficult information, but this is what's happening in our world. And it's important for us to talk about it because if we leave it in the dark, it's going to forever be there. But if you shine light into the darkness, then we can get rid of it. We can begin to combat the human trafficking that's going on. So when I was in school, everybody told me, hey, slavery's gone. Like there's no more slavery, right? And that's what I believed for a long time. And then when I was writing my book series, the Changing Earth series, when I got to book about 5, when I was writing Dark Days in Denver, I started researching Tim Ballard, who's behind The Sound of Freedom. And I found out that that's all a big fat lie. And there's over 300,000 people, the population of the United States in slavery in our world right now. I was so absolutely sickened when I found this out that I knew I had a platform, knew I had a voice, and knew I had an opportunity to make a difference in the world. And with all my martial arts skills and everything, I really prayed on it. And God was like, Sarah, I sent you here to be a warrior, and you're going to teach my daughters how to defend themselves. So I teach everybody, obviously, but I am really focused on women's self-defense and also elderly folks because they think that they can't do anything anymore, and that's absolutely a lie. So if you get out to prepper camp, you could come out and take one of my self-defense classes. I really recommend it. And then, like I say, get involved in a school in your area right now. So let me see if I can get this to go full screen again. Okay. So every 30 seconds, a child is trafficked. That's from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There's a lot of great information there. Also, the gentleman that runs the podcast, Valuetainment. Am I right about that? Do you know what I'm talking about, Jen? That one?
Oh, yeah.
Right? He does
They used to do long form.
Yeah. Yep. And he does a really great show, and he did a really, really good show on human trafficking and what's going on, talking about a lot of different cases of individuals, that they've rescued out of the system. So this is a $150 billion enterprise as of 2020, 21, and 2021. These numbers are really difficult to get because they really don't want you to know what's happening out there, but the numbers are growing exponentially. Trump did a great job of shutting down our borders and bringing a lot of these children out into the light during his first presidency. And then during the open borders and everything, it was basically, send your children across. And then, hundreds of thousands of kids missing. And, right where they ended up was back to fill the need for the pornographic entertainment industry, and also using them as sex slaves and things like that. So 30% increase in child trafficking since COVID-19 happened. That's from the International Labor Organization. 40 million plus victims worldwide. And then child porn is also increasing exponentially. And the United States is the #1 consumer of child pornography, which I find really, really sickening. A lot of times it's mothers that are actually selling their own children for the trade, which, they're really hard up. They're hard up financially, and they see it as a meal ticket, which, is absolutely disgusting and against our biblical principles. I'd hate to be in your shoes when you have to meet Jesus one day. But this is what's happening in our world. And if we don't stand up and say something, we don't bring this out into the light, then it stays forever in the darkness. So child abduction, luckily, a lot of the children that are abducted that we see the Amber Alerts for and things like that are cases of parents. So parents that are taking a child from another parent, that kind of thing. The numbers are way too high for our modern society, basically, which is why people are getting more and more panicked about the child trafficking situation. So it's good that a lot of children are actually, it's not good, but at least they're not being taken, for the trade here in the United States. 1 in 7 runaways end up being trafficked. So the sooner we can get kids off the streets, when they get on the streets, the better. There's big movements for being able to help these children out, instead of letting them become the zombie streets that we have in the streets of San Francisco and Philadelphia. You could just take these people so easily. It wouldn't even, if you wanted them, a lot of them, that drug is disgusting that they're doing there. 99% of victims are women and girls. 75% of trafficking victims are used for sex. 80% of minors were ages 12 and above. So 12 years old is the age when we as parents start to go, you're old enough to go do that on your own. You're old enough to go to the store. You're old enough to do these things on your own. I trust you. Well, that's really great if you trust your child. The problem is there are predators out there everywhere waiting for your child to be alone and waiting for the moment to snatch your child. So that's why it's really important that we talk to our children about what's going on. We help them learn self-defense and whatnot. And we're going to get into that a lot more here in a minute. 80% of victims are never rescued. Okay. And when they are, they need help. They can't just go from being trafficked, 30 to 40 times a day and then just pop into a normal life again. So if you want to help out, well, that's really good organizations to help and give money to, is the people who are actually funding, trying to give these people back lives after they have been trafficked. The typical perpetrator in a stranger abduction is a male aged 18 to 35, unemployed. They usually have alcohol or drug problems. So victims are targeted because of economic hardship. They're runaways, homeless. They have previous abuse in their history that makes them much more likely to be susceptible to being abused and lured in. They have an online presence. We're going to talk about that big time. And then the immigrants and refugees. So we're literally importing children for the sex trade in the United States. I can't even get that word out of my mouth hardly. 100,000 children were missing from the border. That was, I put this together a couple of years ago. That number's up a lot more. We found out that there's a lot more missing than that. About 18,000 to 20,000 slaves are trafficked into the United States every year. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this video on the podcast and get this message out there was because the economic hardship is the biggest target. So if you're making people pay to listen to my voice or learn self-defense, that kind of thing, then you're not really helping those people that need the help the most. So that's why I wanted to make this information available, free for everybody to get at it if they needed it. So trafficking methods, big time they're offering like employment, modeling, acting, singing contracts. So typically they'll be like, hey, we're going to turn your kid into a rock star, have them show up for this meeting, and then they never see them again. There's also a lot of instances where mothers are actually, signing their kids up for this, that they're going to be a singer one day, but we just need to use your child, in this way and that way. And then one day they're going to be a famous superstar and you're going to be all set and it's going to be all good. So, again, we've got to just make sure that everybody's getting informed and that everybody's on the ball as far as that goes. Understanding what the risks are and knowing if it's a real opportunity or not. People saying things when you're in the right place to do the right thing at the right time, even if you're not that child's parent. Also, debt bondage is a big way that they get these people in. So we're going to bring you across the border, but you owe us $15,000. You need to work that off from selling heroin or selling drugs, fentanyl, that kind of thing. And then when it comes time to pay the piper, that they're already addicted to the drug. They're already on the heroin. They're already trafficking fentanyl. They don't really know where to go from there. So they end up just stuck in the system, and then it just gets worse and worse from there. So the debt bondage is really a big deal, kind of like the indentured servitude we had back in the day, except now, you're already under the radar, so better to just keep you there. Social media is a huge trafficking playground. 500,000 predators target children daily. The FBI has a whole wing designated to just agents playing 12-year-olds on video games to try and catch these perpetrators. It's not enough. It happens all the time. So it's really, really important that us as parents pay attention to what's going on. 33% of all internet sex crimes occur on social media. 48% of child kidnapping victims met their captors on social media. So that's why we have to be ever so vigilant. 1 in 4 children freely shares their personal information online. 40% of kids will actually change their privacy setting from private to public. They'll go ahead and do that on their own, figure out how to do it on their own, and just it doesn't matter what mom and dad say. 89% of online child sexual exploitation occurs in chat rooms like Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and Snapchat. And Snapchat, you can actually delete it like 3 minutes after it comes in, so that you as a parent you can't even see what's going on their phone. 1 in 33 children will experience being lured into a sexual conversation or a face-to-face meeting via the internet. So it's really, really important that we are on top of it. We stay involved in what's going on and aware of what our child's doing. So my recommendation to you is that you have the computer in a public area. For example, my son's computer is in my office. That way don't need an excuse to come into that room. I can walk into that room anytime and see what's going on his computer. He's got to use it with me present. And as far as a phone goes, I didn't get my son a smartphone. I got my son a flip phone because he's got a PlayStation 5. He's got a computer. He's got all this stuff. Why would he need a smartphone on top of all of that? So the flip phone, they still figure it out. Don't get me wrong. He's figured out how to listen to YouTube, how to, play video games, all these things on a flip phone. But at least it's kind of a deterrent there for like the social medias and things like that. And social media, I'm a big advocate of positive cloud seeding. Everybody gets on there. They're so mean. They're keyboard warriors saying stuff to people that you would never say to them in person, but everybody thinks that's fine because you're on a computer. So I definitely don't think that social media is a really great environment to begin with. If you're trying to get a hold of me on social media, I mean, good luck. I'm on there once in a while. And probably on X, I'm most active if you're trying to get a hold of me on social media. But yeah, I just don't have the tolerance for it anymore, honestly, because it's really disappointing how people act there. So your children don't need to be there. They see their buddies all the time. There's pen pals, stuff like that. So I did a show back in the day I did a lot of human trafficking shows on the Changing Earth podcast, so you could go and check out. But one of the most influential people in my thought process, and I just love his website, was Michael Loftus. And you can grab that website off the screen there. But his website is a great resource. It's just full of really great information that you can use to keep your children safe. He was a boxer in Boston, and he saw women just getting abused, taken advantage, raped, things like that, was really worried about the children and whatnot. And so he made it his mission to start teaching them how to defend themselves. This was back in the day before, before everything started coming out, like the 80s, 90s. And so his website's great, and I would highly recommend it. So don't panic. The web's great for entertainment, for education, just keep that computer in a public room so you can always see what's going on. Ask your children's teacher what type of programs they're using and stuff like that, and then learn it yourself. Because I can guarantee you that your child is going to know more than you know about a computer. They have grown up with them. We've only had them for like 20 years. So they can figure out everything that we think we're so smart on, There are the parental tools. I'm not really a big advocate of using parental tools because, prohibition didn't work, right? They still made alcohol. They still did all these things. So I'm just not a big proponent of having all of these protectors. I'd rather talk to my child. I'd rather let them know, be so aware of what's going on. And just keep, having the conversations that make him an enlightened, educated individual who can monitor his safety in a responsible way. So monitor the cell phones too. You're allowed to look through their cell phone. There shouldn't be an instance where they're like, nope, I'm not showing you that. Then something's wrong. If I walk into my son's room and he pauses the TV real quick, I'm like, are you watching something that you don't want me to see? Because if that's the case, you shouldn't be watching it at all, right? So watch out. These are areas where kids are really, really bullied. Social media, again, they become these keyboard warriors. And then limit the amount of personal information. You can make them a false ID on there, use an alias, and never, never, never reveal too much to strangers. Facebook is especially bad with users' information. I guess you can be a trafficker on there, and they don't have any problems with that, but they have problems with everybody else. So I don't know what's going on there, right? Yeah, it's just incredible. I don't know what the deal is. But they're especially reckless with everybody's personal information. So that's one I would definitely warn people about. And using aliases, things like that, you can still do it. So you just need fake emails, that kind of thing. It is a lot more difficult now because they're trying to make sure they know who everybody is and whatnot. But I don't know. I think it's just a grooming site. So watch for adult predators. Children can be groomed online. There are games that are literally grooming children online. The YouTube algorithms for children are not always the most wholesome content, even though they're labeled for children. So just be aware of what's going on. This is where a lot of adult perverts go to try and find your children. And then, again, be realistic. Prohibition didn't work. Children are going to figure out computers. They're going to figure out how this stuff works. They're going to know better than you because they've been on it their whole life. So if you're not having the conversations at the dinner table, you're not talking to them about what's important and the threats that are out there, then you're really missing an opportunity to protect your child. So I am an X-generation child. And when I was young, my mom threw me out the door And she said, go pick mushrooms on the highway. And I don't want to see you until it's dark. And we played outside all day, and she'd put a big thing of Kool-Aid out there. And, we would just be going crazy, doing pretty much whatever we wanted to do. So we would had a free range parrot, right? And then we kind of went backwards. We went to the extreme other end because we were all so scared about what's going on. We became helicopter parents. We raised a great big generation of wussies who can't do anything for themselves because mom and dad have always been there. They're coming into job interviews with them, these kind of things. And so that we found out was not really the best style of parenting either, because your children don't know how to stand on their own 2 feet. So the safe range kids is really where it's at. This is like being a lifeguard at the pool. You're not in the water swimming with them every step of the way, but you are there observing. You're on the outskirts listening. You're, available if they need you, but you're not sitting there hovering over them every second of every minute, So we had 6 teenage boys in our house for my son's birthday, and it was crazy time. So I was here, but I wasn't sitting right there with them, man. They're nutso. So when my son wants to go to a friend's house, something like that, we do have people in the neighborhood by us. I'll watch him. He doesn't know I'm watching him, but I'll still watch him. And then he understands why it's so important to check back in with me when he gets there and also before he's going to leave. So I know what the time frame looks like. And I'm right on that as a parent, being aware of my kid's out on the street by himself. This is when I need to be attentive. So definitely the safe range kids and, not being the helicopter parent, but gone are the days when we can just send them out the door. So abduction and kidnapping trafficking methods. There's a myth out there that says, like, if you tell your kids about this, they're just going to be scared of the whole world, and they're never going to want to go anywhere, and they're going to be completely panicked and freaked out. Well, that's absolutely wrong. Your children need to know what is out there. They need to know why you are setting the bounds and whatnot that you are. If you just set up rules with no explanation, they're not going to care. They're not going to listen to you. And all you're going to be is a monster. That's what they're going to think. So you need to talk to them. There's been plenty of times when I'm practicing techniques and self-defense with my son that, I make him really do it. I've had instructors pin me to the ground by my neck so hard and, that hurt for 3 days after, right? But if you're never in the experience of like, this is what it's really going to be like, and this is how you're really going to have to fight and move, then you never know what to expect when you're there. So being soft and, oh my God, they're crying, I need to, stop. No, they need to experience that cognitive dissonance in their head where they have to power through that, because when they're in the moment, it's going to be even worse. So all you're doing is setting them up for success in the long run by having them practice, by talking to them about it so that they have an understanding of what is out there, and you're not just a freaked out mom. You are a freaked out mom, but that's because your life would be devastated without them. So kids won't panic if you tell them the realities of what's out there. And what's out there doesn't have to come from bad people with bad intentions, okay? For me, I had a personal experience when I was younger with a close family member. And he had assaulted other people in my family as well. And because nobody wanted to talk about that and nobody wanted me to be scared or anything, nobody talked to me about it. And it left me completely vulnerable to then for him to continue this chain of abuse. And nothing happened. My younger cousin knew what was up and made sure she was present to come down and stop the situation from escalating any further. But the silence was the killer. because if I would have known, I would have never been in that situation. But because nobody talked to me, that left me vulnerable in that situation. And so don't do that. Also, kids do dumb things. They're just kids. They don't have experience. They don't have a reference base to really call from. So more than 12,000 children die each year from playing. Another 9 million are hospitalized just because they were playing in an unsupervised environment or in a supervised environment. You know, stuff still happens. When children grow up without guidance, 2.4 million of them end up in prison. And another 170,000, and that number is on the rise because of fentanyl, die of drug overdoses. So, you know, be aware. Talk to them. Talk to them. If you give them your life experiences, it's going to be all the better. I guarantee it. So we tell our kids, never talk to strangers. And up here, this slide is a whole bunch of different things that people might say to your child. The thing is, oh no, that's my next slide, sorry. So is never talk to strangers always applicable? No. Okay, what they need to know is to not be lured away from where they're supposed to be. If you're supposed to be at the slide, don't let anybody lure you away from that space, okay? There are all kinds of people out there, and some are nice and some aren't, and never talking to strangers is not something that you want your child to do. However, do not be lured away. If for some idiotic reason you are not available for your children, then I usually recommend that your child goes to a woman who has children. However, the scammers are everywhere, and the scammers are getting smarter, and the scammers, you know, do everything. I seen a video just the other day of one guy who pulls up to a gal and little kid and says, hey, you know, your mom asked me to come pick you up, come get in the car. And she's like, I don't think so. I don't think so. And then another car pulls up, and it's a female, and she's like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing, guy? You can't take her away. Come with me, honey. Come with me, right? Well, this other guy was a standby, and he's like, I watch this kid walk home every day from school. Neither of you have anything to do with this child. And it turns out that they were both in cahoots to abduct this child. So they were literally playing this huge game of, you know, we're going to make her feel this way, get her into your car instead. So the women are figuring out that they can abduct children. They'll have a couple of children with them, and then they just add one more into the group. And that way it looks normal. So everything is in constant flux. This is why we have to talk to our kids. But then here on my slide is some of the things that people could say to lure your child away. Of course, like the puppy thing and all that. And I was like, my kids would never fall for that. But if you look, there's the one that says a man with his arm in a sling and a load of books asking for help. This would be a killer for my kids. You know, he's got his arm slung up. Hey, come over here. I just need you to help me get this out of the trunk. My kids are so helpful, so nice. They'd be like, yes, sir, here we come to save the day and help you out, right? Well, that's just what they need to get lured away. So unfortunately, I had to have that conversation with my child as, you know, make sure you have an adult there, make sure you have your older brother or something like that, so that when you're helping that person out, you know, you're not just going to get stuffed in a trunk. Now, there's also the police impersonators that are scary. And I've also heard of police cars lately. So I don't know. They're like, if you're getting pulled over, you need to verify, you know, back road, you need to verify it's a real police car. This is happening in our world. It is crazy. And I just need to give you the heads up that these type of things are happening, because a lot of people have never, ever heard of stuff like this happening. And you wouldn't believe the stories that I hear from individuals after I get done teaching this class and personal experiences they've had, which are really, really scary. So we're coming into the holiday season. A lot of people are going to be out shopping. It's just, you know, you're crazy focused on the holiday mayhem, and your situational awareness might be dipping this time of year a little bit because you're just focused on, I got to answer. Now, whose present am I getting? How much money I got left? That kind of thing. So parking lots are a huge huge risk area. Okay? Children and women should never, ever have headphones on and their cell phones in their hands when walking from a store to a vehicle. There's a story that my martial arts teacher just told me about this family. They're down at the Houston Chick-fil-A. There's like 6 lines of traffic, 12 workers out there trying to get everybody's order and everything, just mayhem going on. This couple gets out of their car, unloads their 3 kids, hands them all an iPad, and they go through all of that traffic staring at an iPad. I mean, you can't do that. You cannot do that. The other really, really sad example that we have of this is the gal from Ukraine that was on the bus. She came on the bus, earbuds in, staring at her phone the whole time. She hardly even looked at the guy behind her. And you just cannot let your situational awareness slip that hard because it leaves you completely vulnerable. For that gal, I know it's weird and I know it's awkward, but like if you have to ride public transit and you have to sit in front of somebody that's the only seat available, because typically you want to sit at the back where you can see everything that's happening in front of you. That goes for a restaurant, that goes for a bus, anything like that. But if you can't, then you'd want to sit so your back was against that bus wall and you could see to the back and the front, kind of in a cockeyed state, like with your back that way, so you can see both directions, right? It's the only way to ensure that you're aware of what's going on all the way around you. Okay, so dangers all around in these parking lots. That's why you should never have your head in your cell phone. You need your head on a swivel, and you need to have some type of a tack pen. Their metal pens are great. You can use it like that's what you use for your grocery list. I use a window breaker on my key change. They are not legal in all states, so you need to check and make sure that it's legal in your state for you to carry one. But I use that. A key works. You can keep that key in your hand. I'm not a big proponent of pepper spray. And why am I not a big proponent of pepper spray? So pepper spray, most people buy it. They never, ever practice with it. They probably don't even know that there's a clip on there that makes it so you can't spray it, so that you don't accidentally spray it all over the bottom of your purse where it usually lives. So you need to have access to your weapon within 3 seconds. That's all you have. So I carry a beautiful knife that my co-host Chin gave to me. I carry my Monrovia on my hip. It is 3 seconds available. I have the window breaker in my hand. It is 3 seconds available. I literally have my tack pen in my bag as well. And then, if things escalated, I also have my firearm. But that, once somebody's in that close, I'm not pulling a firearm. Once they're that close, if you take your firearm out, they can take it away from you and use it against you. And that's just not something I'm ever going to let happen. So I would default to a knife or a stabbing tool in lieu of the pepper spray. Also, I live in Texas. I don't care if you spray or you spray gel. If you spray that the wrong way, it's coming right back at you. Okay? So I'm just not a big fan of it. You do you. You make your own decisions. I am not you. You decide what's right for you. If you are going to do pepper spray, please make sure you buy 2 and practice with 1. Okay? Make sure it's readily available and not sitting at the bottom of your purse. I'm also not a big fan of tasers or anything like that. Anything that has to be charged, I don't have the discipline to make sure that every night it's charged before I decide to go out somewhere. And I'm really doubting that anybody else does. Plus, they're pretty fragile. And so to have them sitting at the bottom of your purse is usually not a good idea. And that's usually where the self-defense tools go because you don't need them. Also, a car alarm is not sufficient. How many people, when we hear a car alarm these days, go, "Hark! Trouble is afoot. We need to run out there and see what's going on with that vehicle"? No, nobody cares. They're like, whose car alarm is going off? Will somebody please shut that stupid thing off, right? So the car alarm's not sufficient. They sell noise makers at Amazon that make an entirely different sound that can go in a backpack. They're like a whoop, 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 right? They're really annoying. Also, they sell these little whistles that I have for free at prepper camp every time I'm there. They are just little survival whistles. Man, they make a ton of noise. I give them to all the kids there. Everybody loves me. But they're also great when you're hiking, right? You could get lost or whatever. And what a great tool to have on you to make a really loud whistle. So don't rely upon your car alarm. It is not going to be sufficient. So if you are approached by somebody in a parking lot, and definitely teach your children this 100%, you never, ever, ever go to a secondary location. So wherever the incident happens, wherever they're approaching you, that's the primary location. If they put you in a vehicle and take you someplace else, that is the secondary location. Okay, you cannot ever go to a secondary location. I've met one person that ended up at a secondary location and actually survived. One out of a lot of people. So disrupt the kidnapper's ability to drive the vehicle. Once you're in it, you can start kicking them. You can pull that steering wheel. You can shut it down. Whatever you can do to crash that car before you get out of a parking lot, great. The child could run around the vehicle, around and around in circles. I don't recommend yelling "help police," because most people just get out their cell phones and start recording, unfortunately, these days. So I would yell fire. I would yell the B-O-M-B word, whatever. But those are going to be preferable over yelling like help police, because people just are just dumb these days. So they're going to start recording instead of helping you. Blaring the horn, yelling, screaming, whatever they can do to create as much attention as possible as what they need to do in that moment to get that guy spooked so that they get the heck out of there, or that girl. Grabbing the steering wheel, put your back to it. Michael Loftus's website has a ton of great exercises you can practice with your children to get them more familiar with how to do this. Jump out the door. If you can jump out the door when it's not moving or moving very slowly, great, do that. Disrupt whatever they have going, disrupt it. If you're a backseat passenger, you can kick the seat in front of you. And most vehicles these days, if you're put in the trunk, there's a way to get those seats down so you can get through there. Very challenging if your hands are tied or whatever. But man, whatever you got to do to create that, that tension, that the human beings always choose the path of least resistance. So if there is a big thing of blackberries and a trail, you're going to choose the trail. You're not going to go through the blackberries. So humans always choose the path of least resistance. So if you can be the most resistant thing that they have ever encountered, they're going to give it up and they're going to go find somebody else. The other thing that I've been told a lot about that's happening is vehicles are actually getting marked for future abduction. So they're marking the back passenger side window with a little sticker or a string, that kind of thing. So always check your vehicle out and make sure that there's nothing that you don't identify on there, like that you didn't put on there. Because I've heard this from multiple people in multiple cities now, that vehicles are actually being marked as victims so that they can come back and get that person later or center in on them when the time is more appropriate. So definitely be aware of what is on your vehicle and that kind of thing. So the minute you put a backpack on and you put that bag on your back, you now have a handle on your back, right? So you put on a backpack and now you have a handle behind you. That's a perfect handle to abduct a kid with. And a lot of times the kid's like, oh my gosh, my mom or dad would kill me if I lost my backpack, right? And they're so concerned about their backpack that they won't let it go. Let sure your kid knows you do not care about that backpack at all. You care about them and their safety. And if somebody grabs you by it, you swoop your arms backwards and you let that thing rip. You just unbuckle and let it go. Same thing with a jacket. And also a hoodie is the same way. A hoodie is more difficult to get out of, but you better be yelling, you better be screaming, because that is your moment. If you go to the secondary location, you're in big trouble. Okay? I would never, ever, 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 ever teach someone that you should always defend against a firearm, that you should be more concerned about a secondary location than you should about a firearm. But I'm telling you what, if they're willing to shoot you there in a parking lot, then imagine what they're willing to do in a secondary location. Okay? So the choice is yours. You do what you think is right in the appropriate situation. I'm never going to tell you either way, but I'm telling you that if somebody holds a gun to me in a parking lot, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that I don't go to a secondary location. And if that means I get shot, then that means I get shot, because I'm not going to that secondary location. So the kids can climb under cars. They can go out and around, pull fire alarms. Great idea, right? And then this is one of Rick's favorite. If you are in an unwelcome sexual encounter, men's members are held on by cartilage. It's the same as an ear. So you can literally grab a hold of that thing and rip it off. I mean, it's gross and it's horrible to say, but man, they're the ones who put you in that position. So you got to do what you got to do in those moments. So how are the trafficking methods? 1 in 5 girls, 1 in 10 boys will be sexually victimized before adulthood. 1 in 5 girls. That is, it's a horrible statistic. And then 1 in 10 boys, right? So they have to understand what's appropriate and what's not. Juvenile sex offenders account for 25.8% of all juveniles, or of all sex offenders. So 25, almost 26% of all sex offenders are juveniles doing it. So be aware of the threat of older children. Is your kid hanging out with somebody who has an older sibling? What's the older sibling like? You know, that kid that your kid's hanging out with might be great, but the older sibling might be doing all kinds of bad stuff and have really not appropriate friends. So they might befriend other kids to lure them in. 96% of juvenile sex offenders are targeting other juveniles, and 90% of juvenile sex offenders commit forcible sex offenses. That means your child is not choosing to do the wrong thing. They are being forced to do the wrong thing. And then 12.8% involve multiple incidents. So we're not taking care of the problem. They're going back on the street. Your child's going to meet them. As of February 2023, there's over 786,000 people on the U.S. Sex Offenders Registry. Some states publicly display this information where they live, and some don't. So you need to be aware. They're out there. They can be anywhere. 3% in year-over-year increase since 2019. 3% increase every single year. Not just 3% since then. 3% every single year. 237 sex offenders per 100,000 residents. So they are out there. They are your neighbors. And then 29.6 are distributing, manufacturing, or possessing child pornography. It is on the rise. Yeah, I know it's disgusting. It's on the rise. And unfortunately, the United States is the #1 consumer of this material. So we have a problem with our value system that needs to be fixed. And we need to understand that children are off the table sexually. This is no. And I had the question about, like, will AI kind of curtail this? And I don't know. Either way, it's not appropriate. Often sexual abusers know the victim well. So that's why I bring up the story about my uncle, because often you do know the victim well. or the assailant well. So it's important to talk to your children about, your gym teacher might walk through the locker room while you're changing. That's fine. But your gym teacher is not allowed to touch you inappropriately. Your martial arts instructor is not allowed to touch you inappropriately, right? This should be all on the up and up. 31 or 34.1% of victims are registered sex offenders under 12 years old. Of victims. So, all right, let's go back. All right, so let's get into some dating tips for women, because we got all kinds of women out there still trying to find a spouse in this marketplace. And man, it's just a crazy world. So when you're going on a date, gone are the days of, I'll come pick you up and take you to the restaurant. This is not happening anymore. You drive yourself to the date. You have an Uber take you to the date, or you have a friend take you to the date, not the man. Okay. If you're going out hiking in Yosemite, you're not going to go out in the forest without telling somebody where you're going, what that looks like, what time you should have arrived home. So same with when you're going out a date. You have I'm always a big proponent of a battle buddy. So have a battle buddy with you and double date if possible, and especially if it's your first date. Or let friends and family members know your plan, what that looks like. And don't just let them know your plan. When you're out on this date with this guy for the first time, right? Call them while you're on the date so they can hear your voice saying, hey, Sally Jane, I am going to be home about 8 o'clock and I will see you then, right? And that way the person knows you have somebody waiting on you to be someplace at a specific time. You can always change plans later, but this is a really good way to give them the heads up that you have somebody out there waiting for you. If you plan on drinking, always have a pre-planned way to get home. We've got Ubers, we got all these things. So of course you don't want to drink and drive, but drinking and drugs also leaves you very, very vulnerable for sexual assault. So never ever drink from a communal jug. Okay, we're always drinking a drink that's been delivered to us and we can open it ourselves. Of course, you can rub drugs on the edge of the drink, so you have to be sure that you're cleaning the edge off, those kind of things. Even balloons could be a source of a date rape drug. So you always want to make sure you're opening your own drink. They have all kinds of cool coasters, nail polish cups, personal drink devices now that you can use to tell if that drink has been drugged or not. I really recommend you have something like that. The battle buddy, of course, and then all the different methods of drugs that they're using these days. So one of the stories that I heard after a class that I taught, which was a horrific story, was a story about a gal who went to a pool party by herself. And she couldn't remember the pool party when she got home. And she started talking to her dad about how she couldn't remember the pool party once she got home. And so dad said, well, let's take you down to the hospital because, something's up here. They found out that she had been injected with the drug, literally a needle in the back of her arm when she arrived at the pool party. So it's not just on the drinks anymore. They're getting more and more crafty. They just want to deliver the drug, get you in the position they want you to be in for that event. And so you have to be ever so vigilant. And that's why I recommend the battle buddy. Always, 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 always. Go home immediately if you're feeling confused, intoxicated, if your intuition feels off, anything like that. You're always allowed to leave. You're always allowed to stop any sexual activity at any point. There's no rule that says just because you got naked, you got to go through the whole thing now. Okay, you're allowed to leave whenever you want. If you're still at the bar and you're not feeling good, you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel safe, order an angel shot. This is a code word for I need help. And if the bartender goes, I don't know how to make an angel shot, what's that? Tell that bartender to Google it. Okay? Yeah. Because as soon as you Google it, you're going to find out what the angel shot is. And they will find out what the angel shot is and try to do it when you're not, with that individual. Let them know, hey, I got to go to the bathroom or something. You stop by and talk to the bartender on the way. It's a nice down low, peaceable way to be able to get out of this. So now everybody asked me at class, Is there a hand signal? Like I've seen hand signals from people that were in compromised situation that they used to alert people that they were in trouble and needed help. I haven't found a universal one. Like the angel shot is universal, but I haven't found a universal hand signal to like signal to somebody that you're not doing well. I have seen a lot of cases where a woman's out jogging or whatever by herself. She realizes she's being stalked and she finds one of our beloved sheepdogs, you know, a gentleman who's standing around and strike up a conversation. Hey, I'm so glad we met up here today. I haven't seen you in so long. A lot of times they will become aware of what's going on and help you out. Now, again, they're starting to buddy up because they see these. They watch YouTube videos too, right? They see what's happening. So always be ever so vigilant. And I would recommend a battle buddy, especially if you're going running and stuff like that. But or go run in the gym where it's safer. But that is some of the examples I've seen of good people helping out other good people when they're in bad circumstances. So how do they control their victims? They control their victims with threats and intimidation. You know, we're going to kill your family. We're going to kill your children, this kind of thing, if you don't do what we want. Isolation. So they isolate you away from your family members. They don't want you to be with your friends that you usually hang out with, that kind of deal, so that they can emotionally manipulate you, which is the next one on the list. Drug addictions. You get addicted to the wrong thing. Now they got you where they want you. We can offer you this, that, as long as you do what we want you to do. And dehumanization. And this is like, nobody really loves you anyway. Nobody wants you around. What else are you going to be good for, right? You know, here you're valued. Out there, who cares about you? If you're taken prisoner, you can develop Stockholm effect a lot faster than you think. There was a famous bank robbery where the people that were held hostage were like, oh, well, he was just trying to feed his family and blah, blah, blah. It was like 3 hours into that, and they were already feeling guilty for this person because humans thrive on compassion. So some people in this world are psychopaths, and they literally were not born with the ability to have the compassion, right? And I always, the amygdala, it doesn't regulate their compassion properly, and it is a physical problem within this individual. But we are breeding sociopaths in our cities. The brain is only wired for about 110, a tribe of about 110 people. Once you go over that 110 people, you're now into, I don't care about you. You're just another face in the crowd. You're just another person. You're just another face, another body, another. And in our cities where there's millions of people and you're just inundated with it all day long, we are breeding sociopaths. They are being bred to not be compassionate because their ancient brain is just overwhelmed with the size of their tribe. And that is why nobody helped that gal on the bus in Ukraine. And that gal from Ukraine that was stabbed on the bus. That's why nobody helped her. Because she wasn't part of their tribe. Everybody figures, you know, somebody else will come along. When you break down in a rural area, you're more likely to receive help than if you break down in the city, because everybody thinks somebody else will come along. Not my monkey, not my circus, right? Well, our cities are making these sociopaths, and it's a really big problem. So I don't know the solution there, but I do know there's a problem that exists there. And I heard somebody say, well, the solution is Jesus, and I pray that that is the answer. But, you know, that's it, all I got for you there. We need to do something about it, though. So if you're taken prisoner, hopelessness is your greatest source of danger. So you need to be quietly planning an escape all the time. Try to befriend them, cooperate enough that you can start pushing your bounds, appeal to their compassion. How far will they let you stray? And be stubbornly hopeful. So there was a guy in World War II, and I always forget his name, and it begins with an F, and I even had somebody nail it at prepper camp. But he was Polish, and they killed his family, and they burnt down his home, And he didn't have a job anymore. They took him to the Russian prison camp, and they beat him and tortured him. And he came out, and he survived, and he was all right. And he was actually really well-rounded. And they were like, how did you make it through all of that? I mean, that you've had your whole life devastated. And he said, they can take my family, and they can take my home, they can take my job, but they can't take my spirit away. And that's what we got to remember. If you're ever in a situation like that, you just have to be stubbornly hopeful that you're going to make it home, right? All right, the bottom line is, if you're going to go out, you might as well go out fighting. You need to fight for your life with a mad dog mindset. It is 90% your mind and your will and 10% skill. It's all about your attitude. So learn the basic self-defense moves. Practice them until you exude confidence like nobody's business. And just know, if anybody were to come up to try to make you a victim, you are going to blind, deafen, maim, kill, because your life depends on it, and your life is absolutely valuable. 100%. Every one of God's children, right? We're all here for a reason. Hopefully it's to work together for a better future. So how can you help with this situation? Start at home. If you want to make a difference in the world, make your bed in the morning, meaning make sure you start at home. Talk about human trafficking. We can't keep pushing this under the rug like it doesn't exist. We have to talk about it, and we have to put it out in the open, and we have to teach people skills on how to get around it. Fathers need to be involved as a positive role model in their daughters' lives so they have a clear example of how men should behave. We need our fathers. We need good fathers. We need sheepdogs. These are the men that are willing to stand against the evil, because without the sheepdogs, the wolves take over. And little young men need to see how dad treats a woman properly, and that man should be treating that woman properly, and that woman should be showing the respect to the man as well. It's a mutual respect. I've been married for a lot of years now. I'm 27 I'm at years married, and I'm not cooking, cleaning kind of gal. Like we don't have really a traditional construct. What we do have is teamwork and mutual respect 100% of the time. And I respect him for being that man who has been just the most wonderful father that I can imagine. Just such a role model to his sons on how to treat that woman with respect, so that when they get older, they know how to be treated with respect and what respect in return looks like for them, so that they don't get walked all over as well. We're really off kilter as far as it goes. Everybody kind of bashing the male role models and masculinity. That is so not true. There are protectors, there are providers, and we need them 100% present in our child's life. So that's kind of my rant that I do on just how important fathers are to our family structures. Mothers, you need to be present. We usually are like the first line of, oh no, mom, this happened, I got to talk to dad about it or whatever. Be present, be that loving person. Your child is not your meal ticket. So don't for 1 minute believe that your child is your meal ticket. And then talk about it at the dinner table. Brainstorm with them. Run possible scenarios and give them tools on how they should react, right? The key is love, education, and knowledge to be able to get past this. So how can you tell if somebody's being trafficked? Random strangers make all the difference in the lives of these children that are literally living in hell, okay? So there was a bus driver who saw mom dropping the kid off on her own to go with this dude, right? And the bus driver said something, and the hell ended for that child. And that was from her own mother. So yes, there's times when you want to be socially appropriate and maybe not call things out. But if you see something weird, you need to say something about this one. Because if we don't, then that child is going to be condemned to that life. Also, there was a flight attendant. They have flight attendant training now and flight attendant programs where they're just training flight attendants to be able to recognize when a child's being trafficked. This woman noticed that this child was very, very uneasy. Things weren't good. And so she said something and saved this child from this guy. So a couple of great examples, you know, how people doing the right thing at the right time really made a difference. So look for somebody who has lack of control of their own documents, money, or their schedule, right? So they're being kind of led around by somebody else. Physical indicators include signs of physical abuse, malnourishment, poor hygiene, those kind of things. They usually walk around pretty afraid of what's going on, with a lot of anxiety, depression, submissive behavior. They don't want to look you in the eye, and they're unable to speak for themselves. So you ask them a question and somebody else is answering for them. If you do get the opportunity to speak with them, a lot of times they've been told what to say. They have a scripted conversation that they're supposed to have. And so you ask them, where are you from? What was your mom's name? Just a series of questions, and then revisit some of the same questions. Where did you say you were from again? And see if they're messing up when you revisit the same questions. See if they're giving you different answers. See if they're thinking a little too hard about where am I from? What was I supposed to say? Those are all really good indicators that somebody's being trafficked. Working and living conditions. So sometimes they're living right where they're working. It's a red flag, although, you know, we do have instances where people live and work at the same spot. So if you are a human trafficking victim, or you know somebody who could be a human trafficking victim, we do have a national hotline for human trafficking. I play the commercial during my audio drama every single episode because I do understand why we don't have this commercial on TV, because a lot of our elites are wrapped up into the pedophilia and whatnot. But we should have this commercial on our TVs all the time. You know, we're watching all these pill commercials and all of this stuff, and we're not even seeing that, you know, there's real things you can do to prevent human trafficking. We have the phone line, we have the text line that you can call in anonymously. You know, you can just text, and then the law enforcement is going to be alerted to what's going on, and you could be saving that life. So if you see something in this case, say something. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some of the escapes that you can use to get out of situations. The first one that we're going to do is getting out of zip ties. So hold on one second while I get this queued up. Like I say, I'm dealing with a lot of technology tonight, so y'all just got to give me a pass on that one. I'm usually on a stage. Okay. So I did not edit this video, and there's a reason I didn't edit this video, and it's long. It's going to take us a while to get through. And I didn't edit this video for a reason. It's because this is challenging, right? This is hard to do. So I wanted you to understand that I didn't want you to think like, oh, well, Sara got out of it in 3 seconds, so I should be able to get out of this super easy, right? So what I'm doing right now is I untied my shoelaces. You can replace your shoelaces with paracord. It's a great idea. If they're really stout shoelaces, like ones for boots and whatnot, usually those will work. I mean, even if they're not, I would try it, even if I had to. But I have a pair of sneakers that don't have shoelaces, so I would not have something for my feet that I could use, and I could still use this method. So they make really pretty paracord. You can put it in head wraps on your daughter. They can make a cool little necklace. I do warn against the bracelets and the necklaces, though, because if you've ever had paracord like in a bracelet for 10 years and you try to take that thing apart, it's really hard to do. It's really stiff and really hard to get apart. Okay, so I am putting the paracord through the bottom of my hands on the bottom, and I just got it through. I pulled it through with my mouth so that I can tie my shoelaces together in a knot. again, my hands are really tight. Whenever we do stuff like this, my husband just thinks it needs to be the tightest we've ever done it before. And yeah, he makes everything so tight. That's why I can't do this day after day, of doing the example. So I'm tying the shoelaces together and teasing him. And then I'm going to work my legs like I'm doing the bicycle. See, the paracord is connected underneath my hands, and I'm creating friction on that zip tie at the same time I'm pulling my hands apart. Friction will break any zip ties, no matter how big they are. But they do have the really big ones now. So they would be really challenging, but guess what? Your life is worth it. 100% worth it. So whatever you got to do, you do it. All right, the next one I'm going to show you is escaping duct tape. So again, my husband likes to put it on really tight and get me all taped up here. Now, the one thing I will say is see how I extended my arms out really straight so my elbows are almost together? When somebody's trying to put duct tape on you, don't do that. See? And then boop, you're out. Okay, I'm going to show you that one again. But, oh boy, I got to get off of that picture. That looks horrible. I'll see I'm like, that's ugly. I like got cross-eyed and everything, I think. Okay, so with the duct tape, see how I put my arms out really straight like this? Don't do that. Try to keep your elbows open as much as they'll allow you to keep your elbows open. That's just going to help you out in the long run. When I get taped up, I'm going to drive my elbows into my hips as hard as I can. We've done thick tape. We've done lots of circles of tape. We've done few tape. I've gotten out of all of them. Let me show you the video one more time. So you can see my elbows are pretty together. That would be a bad move. Don't do that. Don't make it easy on your perpetrator to do something like that. And then we put the tape around. And then watch my elbows. You're going to see how I just drive them into my hips. Right? Watch the elbows. Open hands. Bam. Into the hips. Boop. It breaks right open. Okay? So it's really easy until it's not. So there's times, yeah. If the tape's like rolled, right? It doesn't go on flat. It's like rolled up. Or that's the biggest thing I've found, honestly, is like when it's crinkly, it's harder to get through. So it's really easy until it's not. But as you're driving your elbows over and over and over again, because you are not going to be a victim and you're not going to get stuck in that situation, it creates sweat, which is beautiful because no duct tape can stand up to sweat. It also gives you that stretch moment where the duct tape is stretching, and then you can literally undo it from your hands. So typically works. Again, friction will break duct tape. So if you could rub your arms on a belt, something like that, again, whatever you got to do. All right, the last one that I'm going to show you is how to get out of handcuffs. So they do make handcuffs that are clear on one side so you can learn to pick them. You can pick them with a paper clip. It works really well, but I found an easier method. And I'm going to explain to you why I'm not such a fan of the picking in a moment, but let me just show you what's going on here. So I have the handcuffs on. These are called ASP handcuffs, ASP, right? They're very good handcuffs. Inexpensive ones. So I'm putting the brad in between the teeth there. You can use any little piece of metal, but you put it in between the teeth and then you push a little bit tighter. Let me get it in there. See, it's not always easy. Sometimes you got to play with it. You've only got, so many hands, and sometimes you got to fiddle with it. But once you get it slid in between the teeth and that mechanism, bam, you can open it right up. And you can use a piece of like a soda can. A bobby pin is kind of big. I've tried, like if you file it down, you can do it. You really need like a flat metal. So honestly, like the soda can would be better. Here, I'll show it to you one more time. So, picking the handcuffs and getting out of the handcuffs is easy until it's not. And why isn't it always so easy? Sarah, you just showed us it was so easy. Well, with handcuffs, and specifically with good handcuffs like these ones, they don't always do it, but specifically with good handcuffs like these ones, they do a double lock. So the police like the double lock, and I'm not saying you should ever try to pick locks if the police have you in handcuffs, okay? So don't do that. This is only for if it's bad guys. So the police use the double locking mechanism so that the handcuff can't tighten around your wrist and get really, really painful, cut the blood supply off to your wrist, that kind of thing. Some perpetrators are also going to use those same types of cuffs, right? So once they're double locked, you can't get them back. You can't push them in anymore. They're done. And you can buy the double lock ones that have the clear face, so you can learn to pick that. Absolutely. And I keep a paper clip on the back of my hat just for that reason. You can definitely learn to pick them. However, at Amazon, they sell universal handcuff keys. And they sell them for about $5 for like 10 of them. So what I did was I have my universal handcuff key clipped into my hat. So all I have to do is knock my hat backwards and grab it in my hands, and I have a handcuff key. It's much easier to just use the key to undo them. I have a key in my purse. On Lee jeans, you know, the jeans that have a leather pouch in the back, the leather patch in the back, you can undo a couple of stitches on that, slide one of the keys in there. You can sew them to the inside of any kind of skirt, any kind of jeans. If you are searched, of course, that, you run more of a risk of them seeing the key there, unless you're kind of like hiding it within fabric, that kind of thing. But I just hide them everywhere, now that I figured out, like, oh, I've tried it in the universal keys. I've tried them in every single pair of handcuffs that I've gotten my hands on, and they work in all of them. Every single pair that I've ever picked up will be undone by the universal handcuff key. Make sure it says that it will open up the ASP. Those are the best ones, the best handcuffs. Those have the most specific key for them. So make sure when you're looking at the universal key, it says that'll open up that one, because that's the winner. Like Smith & Wesson won't open the ASP handcuffs, but the ASP handcuff key will open the Smith & Wesson ones. So those are the important ones to get. And why recreate the wheel if you can just hide keys everywhere and you're good to go? However, most of the time I do see that they're using the zip ties, the duct tape, things like that, much more readily than actual handcuffs. I mean, it's cheaper. They're just cheap, I guess, cheap criminals. And it's cheaper for them to do the zip ties and the duct tape. They have the new zip ties that have it's really thick, and they have like a center divider because they're used for handcuffs more. And those ones would be just such a challenge to get out of, but you can do it. You can do it. Your life's worth it. So, alrighty. Well, that is my anti-abduction, kidnapping, and self-defense class. I'm going to encourage you guys to go out and find a martial arts school in your area. Like I say, they're everywhere. Usually you get a week free class. Make sure you like the instructor. Make sure you like the class that you're there with. The people that are there, because the people you're training with are just as important. But it is 90% your attitude and 10% your skills. You can win the day a lot of time just with a superior mental attitude. So I'll end on a funny note. I went to a bachelorette party, and at the bachelorette party, I don't want to sound racist or anything, because I have many, whole variety of friends of different colors, but we were about 6 white gals inside of, we were the only white gals in the bar. I'm going to put it that way. And the bachelorette had, she's got a booty like you wouldn't believe, right? So all of the black gentlemen were very interested in her, and all the black women were very upset about this gal coming in. And I'm me doing my thing. And finally, this guy comes up and asks me, hey, are you a lesbian? And I was like, yeah, I am. And all these chicks are my chicks. And if anybody touches them, they're talking to me about it, right? They were safe all night long just because I put up this huge front about what a badass lesbian I was, you know? So, you know, it's mindset. It's mindset. You can rule the day. And then if you have the skills to back it up on top of it, I mean, all the better. And I danced with my friend. I made sure I was kind of bodyguarding for her on the dance floor and whatnot. I made sure that everybody got it home safe. And not, you know, everybody's great people. I'm not trying to say anything about, you know, anybody bad. I've got all kinds of friends of every different color, so I'm definitely not a racist. But you know, when you're when you're in an iffy area, and things could go wrong, and you're in the city, like deep city, and you usually live out in the country, and so yeah, it's about mindset, and it's about just knowing that you're going to dominate the day. You're not going to become a victim, and there's nothing that anybody can do to make you into that victim. So I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and put one together that's geared towards the kids, so that we have something that we can show the children to kind of ignite that conversation and get that going, and more of a less, you know, there's a lot of graphic material and everything that goes on with this class. So, you know, just a way that we can show the children, hey, what's up. But I have had a ton of kids come to my class. I've had them come over and over again. They love it. And so I'm always a big proponent of, you know, let them know what's going on. All right, I haven't even been looking at comments. I'm going to open it up for just 1 second if I can get it pulled up. And see if anybody has anything going on. Do you see anything on Element, Chin? Anybody have any questions?
No, not last time I looked. Let's look again. I saw Garden Girl was in there, but there wasn't really
No, I don't
much. I think I found the YouTube, the entertainment, whatever it was called. I forget what it's called. About human trafficking, so I threw that in there.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, now's the time. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and it looks like, it sounds like Amber's over it.
She's upstairs. Yeah, we're in the house, and I'm downstairs with the door closed. She's upstairs.
And she's like, yeah.
Want to be part of the podcast.
Yes, she's going to get abducted. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Please share this video with everyone you know. It's going to be posted at PBN. It'll also be posted over on my YouTube, author Sara F. Hathaway. It's going to be posted over there. It'll also be posted at ChangingEarthSeries.com. So please feel free to share this video as far and wide as you can. I'm going to break it into some shorts as well, so that we can just keep spreading the word and helping people be prepared and stay safe. All right, guys. Until next time, dream,
survive,
thrive. Oh, no. Technology. See you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Changing Earth podcast. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a comment or a review. Help make the Changing Earth world go around by purchasing the Changing Earth novel series at Amazon.com or get your signed copies at ChangingEarthSeries.com. Get your Changing Earth gear and become a paid subscriber for extra goodies at ChangingEarthSeries.com.